Good evening. This is John Baley, and this is People to be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. And tonight you've got Carl Albanese in the center seat. Welcome to the program, Carl.
Good to see you again, John.
And Benjamin Rosenshine, owner of Blue Line Range in Elmsford. Shooting range, right? And instructing gallery?
Exactly.
Okay. And they are here today. First of all, Carl, you're a national firearms safety instructor.
That is correct.
And resident of White Plains for 25 years. And you were also active in protection of the Second Amendment right to bear arms.
Absolutely,
right.
Mr. Baley.
And you are here, along with Ben, is because the Democrats in the Westchester County Legislature voted to ban gun shows on county property last Monday. And though at this time it looks as if there is going to be a compromise, just making already existing gun show security protocols part of county law with no outright ban on shows in the county, I thought it would be a good idea to get to the bottom of it from your perspective as persons in the gun business and gun enthusiasts. And first of all, Carl, what goes on at a gun show? Who comes?
Well, first let me define something to you, John. I'm happy after all these years, and I'll go back 20 years here in the city of White Plains, where you're finally taking the effort, and I compliment you on that, of giving us the opportunity, Ben and myself, to really define the facts and truths about, number one, gun ownership, and the fact of gun shows at Westchester County, which has existed for over 25 years, going back to County Executive O'Rourke, going back to County Executive Spano, who banned them. And now we have, to his great credit, County Executive Rob Astorino, who has brought back the legal gun show possibilities in Westchester County. This concept is nothing new here of, quote, as you just stated here, of the Democratic liberal camp contingency agenda political arena to not want to have gun shows in Westchester County. I need to explain to the audience, I've been a Democrat my whole life, and we've never had the opportunity to really come forward and say, we are legal gun owners, we believe in the Second American, we're all Americans. Because a lot of Democrats refuse to come forward for the fear that they're going to be chastised, especially our political components here in White Plains, and there are many who own guns in White Plains. So this issue that you're bringing forward and giving us the opportunity to define is long overdue, and we certainly appreciate that. I think we're here to address two questions, and I'm going to refer to Ben a lot because he's much more qualified than I am in terms of background checks, the procedures and process to buy a gun, sell a gun. But I'll refer primarily to your two issues, which is one, are there background checks at gun shows? Ben will probably address that comprehensively. And the loophole factor of, citizens buying guns. And the other thing that you had mentioned to me, should there be gun shows at government county buildings? Well, let's look at that. We've had them here for over 25 years. Right. And I would encourage anybody, including our local politicians, to come forward and prove to us that there has ever been a single incident in the county of Westchester where an illegal gun or legal gun was purchased in this county and used in the act of crime. Yeah. I don't know of any. So ask your questions, and I'm very happy you're doing this.
Right. So first of all, what goes on at a gun show, Ben? Who comes? And can you buy a gun at a gun show? And can you walk home with a gun?
Well, the people that go to gun shows are primarily collectors and enthusiasts. Criminals don't go to gun shows. If a criminal wants to buy a gun, they buy it on the street. So enthusiasts go, collectors go, and they go to see a variety of different dealers, perhaps. Now, in terms of buying the gun, you can buy a long gun, which is defined as a rifle or a shotgun, and you pass a background check, and you can leave with the gun. In New York, in order to purchase and take possession of a handgun, you have to have a license. In the county of Westchester and most other counties, you have to have that gun added to your current license. So you can go to a gun show, you can come to a dealer like myself, you can purchase a handgun, but you're not going to leave with it anyway. We're going to give you paperwork that you're going to submit to the county. In about 4 weeks, you're going to get back a small coupon that's stamped by a judge along with a new license. You're going to bring both of those to us. At that time, we're going to run a federal background check on you with the FBI NICS system. If you pass that, then you can leave with the gun. So people, there is no such thing as buying a handgun at a gun show, unless, of course, you're active law enforcement, in which case then you can buy it on your badge and leave with the gun. But as a civilian, even retired law enforcement, as a civilian, you must have your license amended, which takes 3 to 4 weeks in Westchester County.
And the gun.
And you have to pass a federal background check, which is run with the FBI NICS system, and that's federal law.
Right, and from what I understand from talking with a law enforcement person about this, that these procedures have been in force in gun shows, and Westchester has run them, I think, twice in the last 5 years. They've run gun shows.
The last one was 2012.
Yeah, right, right. So basically, the legislation that is supposedly the compromise that the Republicans have submitted to the legislature basically gives you the sham that these aren't in effect, and now they are, but they've been in effect.
The one thing that people constantly refer to, and erroneously, is the gun show loophole. There is no gun show loophole. But what happens frequently is that you'll have individuals that will come with guns, and perhaps they'll even be walking around with them. They won't have a table or a booth, and somebody will approach them and say, is that gun for sale? Yes. And what they'll do, because they can't do it legally in the gun show, and every gun show across the country mandates that guns have to be transferred legally, what they'll do is they'll go out to the parking lot and do it transferred there. And that's not a loophole, okay? What that is that's just wrong, okay? And
it's illegal.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the gun show doesn't necessarily facilitate that, especially in the days of the internet, where I can advertise my guns on the internet and I can meet you in a parking lot someplace and sell them to you illegally, which does happen frequently. Much more frequently, I think, across the country than people buying guns illegally at gun shows.
But let's define one thing here, Ben. First of all, in reference to who attends gun show, Ben gave a pretty good comprehensive explanation. If you go to the Westchester County Gun Show, and I encourage you to go to the Westchester County Gun Show, I encourage our local politicians to go to the gun show, including, Congresswoman Nina Lowy and David Buchwald, Assemblyman, and Amy Paulin, and all the anti-gun Democratic platform people in this city. You're going to find at gun shows an incredible amount of patriotic Americans. You're going to find veterans there. You're going to find police officers there. You're going to find professional people, doctors, who are all legal, and families. You're going to find a lot of families with their children there, because we all believe, especially at gun shows, it's the ideal place to become educated and up to date on the legalities and responsible gun ownership. So when you go to a gun show, there's also this misconception, Ben, which we haven't hit upon yet, that there's no law enforcement security there.
And there is.
There are state troopers there. There's BTAF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, people there walking around.
County police are
County police are there constantly. There is an incredible amount of police security at the Westchester County Gun Show. So this
now, the reason for that is really to protect the guns more than anything else. Okay, because when you've got a venue like that, clearly, for somebody, with illegal intent, it might be very enticing.
Yes, and a source in law enforcement that is familiar with patrol procedures that the Westchester County Police do, he says that they do check the parking lots quite closely, and they also tag the guns coming in that people were bringing in to perhaps sell.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
But understand one thing, as Ben referred to, you constantly want to come after the legal gun owners in this country and Westchester County and hold those responsible for the criminal illegal activity, and you continuously want to pass gun legislation which has absolutely no effect on the illegal activities of gun possession and sales. So you can keep implementing as much gun restrictions that you want, but we are not the ones who violate the laws.
You're aiming at the wrong target.
Well, to get a handgun license in Westchester can take you somewhere between 12 and 18 months. It involves classes, it involves money, it involves time, it involves letting a lot of the people in your life know that you're pursuing this, because you need to get references and that kind of thing. Those are not the people that buy guns and commit crimes with them. In fact, you know, an interesting statistic which I heard recently is that no licensed handgun owner has ever shot a police officer in the United States.
Really? That is a very interesting stat. So, since most of the shootings are accomplished by illegal guns, what do you think might be a way to stop these illegal sales?
There's a correction here that really needs to be classified.
Okay.
And understood. There are people who have purchased legal guns through the legal process of getting licensed with the intent of committing a crime. You consider the last shooting at the Orlando airport, which you and I discussed in detail.
Right.
This is an individual, not only was purchased his guns legally, he was crying out for help. Okay.
Yeah, he did purchase his guns legally, but he was not licensed because he came from a state where a license wasn't required.
Yeah. So when you have, again, a criminal activity intent, whether it's an illegal gun or a non-legal gun, that is something that is virtually impossible to prevent, which we all are trying to find some way, wave the magical wand of how we can stop the very rare crimes that are committed with legal guns by people who are psychologically disturbed.
But look, you now have, you know, a contingent of people that are switched from using kind of conventional weapons to using vehicles as weapons, and it happened in Israel last week. It's happened in France. It's happening all over. Now with everything from the Thanksgiving Day parade to the New Year's celebration, the big thing that NYPD was concerned about was somebody using a vehicle, not a bomb, not a gun, but a vehicle. And it's kind of become a little trite for people to quote this, but it's still a fact. There were 762 gun deaths in Chicago in 2016. The city that has the strictest gun laws in the country, maybe in the world.
Now, Virginia Perez, one of the legislators who voted for the ban, she had a brother killed by an illegal handgun, so she has a personal, real problem with this issue. And I was just wondering if you have any ideas of how these illegal sales could be cracked down on. Because less sentences are handed out than the law requires. That was Ms. Perez's issue.
You know, that's the magical question. Yeah. How do you stop the purchase, well, not even a purchase, how do you stop the access of criminals getting illegal guns? If anyone can come up with that magical solution on the streets of this country, we would not have this kind of violence. But it really is up to law enforcement, and they do an incredible job of trying to prevent gun violence in the streets. And Ben, you should reference this because I know you're quite qualified, that these are usually gang-related, drug-related activities of killing people. It is not the legal gun owner, yet you want to deprive us from having the constitutional right to protect our families against this kind of a crime if we should ever be put in the position to have to defend ourselves. I think Ben would probably agree with me, and certainly most gun owners that I know, we are willing to put our life at risk if we have to in a circumstance where we would be willing to intervene as a legal gun owner to protect the lives of others from getting killed. We're willing to do that risk. We understand that responsibility, which is an incredible responsibility for us to have. But if you deprive us from the right of doing that, then we can't save lives. We're going to be victims ourselves.
That's why gun-free zones are such a scary idea, because what you're doing is you're telling law-abiding citizens, you can't bring a gun in here. The person who wants to commit an act of violence or a crime doesn't care.
Right. In fact, in Orlando, Carl, you were pointing out that the gentleman, the terrible person who did that in Orlando, actually checked the gun, had put it through, and then they put it back in his bag.
Let's go over that for one quick second, and the brief version is this. This individual checked his gun legally at the airport, which is required to do. You go up to a particular area, you surrender your gun, they take the gun from you. It is now in their possession. What was not in place, and I can only hope now that there will be laws passed, and I'm in total support of this. I know a lot of gun owners won't agree with me, but if you have a particular place where a gun has to be checked in, why don't you have on the receiving end a place and a secure place where that gun has to be picked up and law enforcement gives you that gun? In this particular case, it was put back into his luggage and he retrieved it at the carousel. At that point, he was able to commit what he committed and killed a lot of people because he had access to his gun. How absurd has that been, that you're allowed to have your gun by law enforcement? We're going to talk about security at the airport, not police. And they put your gun back into your luggage and you can just go pick it up at the carousel. At that point, you can arm it. I'm opposed to that, given the light of what's just happened right now, that there needs to be a better secure system where an individual who wants to legally transport his gun, whether it be for hunting, recreational, you also have to have a place at the airport with high security where that gun is going to be retrieved by you. And in my opinion, I'll take it a step further. I think you should be escorted out of that airport so you can prevent these kind of crimes from happening again. And I know it's a controversial issue.
Well,
Ben.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what you're preventing, really, because you're escorted out and then you turn around and you come back. And look, you know, this is the first time something like this has happened. So, unfortunately, you can't plan for everything. Most of the time, we react to things. So now we've had this instance, and Carl, I agree with you. There should be some kind of mechanism. I mean, generally, when you transport a firearm, at least a handgun, you do pick it up in a specific place. It's not just put on the carousel. The fact that this was, and it has to be in a certain kind of TSA-approved lockbox, it's unusual that it would be just put into somebody's luggage.
Very unusual.
Very unusual. It seems unusual.
Very unusual.
When I
Absolutely.
heard of it.
Absolutely.
So, should gun shows offer safety seminars and products to protect children and teens from being injured or inflicting injury in the home, like the locks that you can put on a gun?
Well, first of all, it's illegal for a dealer to sell a gun to anybody without a lock. Gun cannot leave my store without a lock.
Right.
Should gun shows offer this? I don't see that there'd be anything wrong with it. I think it would be, you know, a fine thing. And for instance, what we're going to do at this gun show is that we're going to offer free background checks to anybody that wants to do a person-to-person transfer. This way, there's really no excuse. You can't say, well, it costs too much, or we're going to offer that as a community service just for the weekend that we're there. If one person wants to sell a gun to another person, they can bring it to us, and as a community service, we will do a free background check.
Right.
John, just to Ben's point, you know, this county passed legislation many, many years ago, and we all disputed the law. Number one is that all guns have to be sold with a gun lock, and there's a variety of different types of gun locks. That legislation currently exists in Westchester County, if not New York State, and that was passed in 2001 under Pataki, as well as background checks at gun shows. So those laws currently exist again. So when you bring this forum that we're at right now to dispute the legislation by this Westchester County, it's redundant, it's irrelevant. These laws currently exist. So why are you wasting taxpayers' dollars and their time for, it's just another political agenda, John.
Well, it certainly seems to me, if these procedures are in effect at gun shows across the state, which you know from experience.
Well, it's the law.
It's the law. I mean, why are we giving the impression to the public by this compromise to avoid doing the ban? Why are we offering that as something new, which was the spirit of their press release? And, you know, I don't understand this political grandstanding.
Well, because I think that's what it is. I think that there's some people that are just looking to make political hay out of this.
Sure.
You know, it's my my ability to take a stand on something and get my name out there.
Yes, and you know, it makes it, I spoke about this on the air, and someone called in and pointed out that, wait, these things exist now. You can't walk out without a gun check. But the legislation that I had read that the Board of Legislators put together basically said we're going to make sure these things happen. giving the impression, not said, of course, that they didn't exist.
Well, let's look at
That's
what
terrible.
let's
That's playing the public.
let's look at what happens with a lot of politicians, and I don't want to offend anybody here in Westchester County.
Heaven forfend.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to take the time out to really do the educational process of learning what currently exists in terms of gun laws and gun rights. If they took that time out and spoke to somebody like Ben or myself, or even invited us to the table, in the 25 years I've been here, I've reached out to Amy Paulin, I've reached out to former Assemblyman Adam Bradley, I've reached out to David Buchwald, I've reached out to Tom, help me here, John, who is now with the legislator. Abernanti. I've reached out to Sandra Galif, asking all of them to meet with me and the gun fraternity here so we can educate you on the processes and the facts and the truths. They have to this very day, except for one person, John, and that was Candace Cochran, who ran for county legislator under the Bill Ryan debate back then. She's the only one, John, who took the time out while she was running for office to go to a West County gun show. The end result of that, John, because you were part of it,
Yes.
she took a gun safety class with me as well as
In
you.
New Jersey.
And she became licensed after that because we proved that these were all myths and lies perpetuated by the anti-gun political climate.
Right. Well, it's very easy to be anti-something, but and we see a lot of that today, being anti-something, but not really, learning the facts about it, because perhaps you don't want to know the facts.
It's funny, Carl and I were talking about this before we came on. An anomaly in New York is, or at least in Westchester, in order to get a pistol license, you must first own a pistol, which you own but can't possess until
Very
after
good
you
point,
get your
Ben.
license. Legally, I'm not allowed to let you touch a gun, let alone discharge it, handgun, until after you have your license. But you must buy one and put the information on the permit application, which I liken to taking a course on auto safety and being told if I want to buy a car, I've got to go down to the dealership and buy a car. Oh, I can't drive it. I can't even sit in it until after I get my license. My license is going to come in the mail a couple months later, and I can go down to the dealership, hop in the car, and drive away, having never driven a car. It's the same thing here. We have people come in, they're all excited, I've got my new license, I want to pick up my gun. We run a background check on them with the FBI. We hand them the gun, and they look and they go, I don't know what to do with it. I took the safety class a long time ago. I don't really remember it, and I've never held a gun before. Why, instead, you couldn't, once you take the safety class, get together with an instructor like Carl, go to a range, learn how to properly handle, maintain the gun, shoot the gun, so that when you get the gun in your own possession, you can maintain it safely.
Okay.
These kinds of things don't make a lot of sense. And as Carl pointed out before, a lot of legislation is passed to try and make people feel good, to try and grandstand, to try and get out ahead of other people without consulting law enforcement, without consulting people like Carl, without consulting people like myself, who perhaps might have some good suggestions.
But let's clarify one thing here, Ben and John. Westchester County legislators, you should really listen to this, because we have been debating this issue with you for over 25 years, and you talk about gun safety. So to the county legislators, you are forcing us, and this is a New York State law, to give a gun safety class, train people with the safety procedures of owning a gun. You license them before they can even buy that gun, yet you don't allow us in our classes to actually let them handle a gun and give them live fire training on the range so they are safe and qualified. This has to be changed.
And New York is one of the very few states.
So what happens in our classes, and you took our class, John, I had to take you out to New Jersey just so I did not violate New York State laws, risk getting arrested and committing a felon that I'm putting a handgun in your hand. Yet you took that class out in New Jersey, you became qualified to actually shoot a gun, you went through all the safety procedures, yet if you did not take that course, you would have picked up your gun, you would have gotten your release papers from a county judge, you would have held your gun, and you would have never known what to do with that gun, because we are restricted from actually giving you the training of how to shoot a gun. How absurd is that?
I learned a lot
How
from
absurd is
firing
that?
those guns over in New Jersey. I realized how easy it is to pull the trigger. I realized that there was no real kick to that large revolver.
Well, in terms of the gun we were putting in your hands in terms of a caliber, what you did learn there, John, you learned the absolute safety and responsible gunship and ownership and how to shoot that gun. More importantly, it was a recreational sport for you. I know you went in there very apprehensive about wanting to handle a gun, but when you left that class, how did you feel, John?
I felt very confident knowing at least what to do with the revolver and knowing how to cock the automatic.
The semi-automatic.
Right, the semi-automatic. And I also realized that the semi-automatic is perhaps the safer kind of gun to have because of the revolver just shoots. And I'm not afraid to use one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gun safety is a very important thing, and you know, we have people that buy guns for home defense all the time, or buy them for recreation, and ask, well, should I hide the gun from my kids, not tell them about it? We said quite the contrary.
Absolutely no.
I've raised
no.
My wife and I've raised three boys.
Thank
who
you
are
for
now
bringing
men.
this up.
Good point.
And we never hid the guns from them because, you know, Dad's stuff's the best stuff to get into, right?
Yes,
Always.
right.
So they're gonna, whatever it is, they're gonna find, okay? And it shouldn't be a curiosity. So I tell people, take the gun home, sit your children down, say, Mommy and Daddy have just got this new gun. You can look at it, you can touch it. Anytime that you want to touch it, you're curious about it, you want to look at it or touch it, you come and you ask us, and you can do that. You can't do it when we're not here, and in fact, because children up to a certain age will believe this, if you do it and we're not here, we will know about it, and boy, are you going to be in big trouble. And bring them to the range, and let them hear what the gun sounds like. Let them see the kind of damage that it can do to something so that they know that it's not a toy.
Yeah.
Have them learn a healthy respect for it, so that's not a curiosity.
Right. Well, gentlemen, Carl Albanese and Ben Rosenshine of Blue Line Range in Elmsford, you have been heard on guns, and I appreciate your coming on such short notice to discuss this issue. John Baley, thanks for watching, and good night for People to Be Heard.